you. Thank you very much for having me. I want to thank Margarita and Allison for arranging this visit. And I'm very glad to be here. Please excuse me for sitting. I would normally stand, but I have 2 torn meniscuses. And it happened all at once, and I don't really know how. Well, actually, if you follow my blog at all, you know that I do a great deal of dancing. I blogged on that recently, and I think somehow it just caught up with me. But anyway, so let's get started. Yeah. So I'm going to start by saying a little bit about looking for jobs, although I do realize I went through your program and saw that you have already covered a lot about looking for jobs, so not much on that. But and then move into the issue of your resume and your cover letter. So, Allison already did a really nice introduction, but I did want to know, how many of you are familiar with The Professor Is In? Okay, so a few of you are not. So just to elaborate just a little bit, I was an anthropologist of Japan. My PhD was from University of Hawaii. My first job was at University of Oregon. I got tenure there. I went to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and immediately became department head of the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, which is a humanities department. So I bridged the social sciences and the humanities. And my style of anthro was firmly in the humanities camp. So I was there for the term of 5 years as head. And then I decided to leave the academy, and for reasons that I explain in my book and in a blog post. And I started The Professor Is In. And so what I do, you guys probably can't see that, can you? You can? Okay. So I actually work with clients on editing cover letters and their CVs, mostly for the academic job market. And then about 3 years, and helping with interview prep, job talk prep, things like that, grant writing, book proposals. And then about 3 years ago, I started a post-academic wing. And so I have a team of about 9 people who help with post-academic transition, coaching, consulting, and editing of resumes and cover letters. So yeah, I do have a book, and the last part of the book, like 80% of the book is on the academic job search, and then about 20% is on the post-academic. So I drew on the expertise of 2 of my consultants, Darcy Hannibal, who is an anthropology PhD, and Maggie Gover, who is a communications PhD, and they do some of my consulting. So I wanted to make sure I gave them credit. Darcy is a project scientist at UC Davis, and Maggie is the director of grad student professional development at UC Riverside, and she is a total rock star. So you should, I believe that almost everything they have at UC Riverside on grad student professional development is publicly available to everybody, whether you're a Riverside grad student or not. So by all means, check that out. Also, actually, to tell you the truth, the whole UC system does a really good job on grad student PhD professional development. So UC Davis has fantastic materials as well. Berkeley, I'm not so sure. And I think if Berkeley did have it, they'd probably keep it behind a paywall or, whatever, But at least Riverside and Davis are good. And then, of course, I'm sure that you have already been live tweeting, I assume. Have you been live tweeting? Okay, well, somebody's live tweeting because I saw it on Twitter. But anyway, so this is one of your hashtags. I know you have 2. This is correct, right? Yep. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's get started. So I want to start with what I consider the most important element of the post-academic transition. But, well, wait, I have to know who I'm talking to. So how many people are like first or second year, like early PhD students? And then how many people are late PhD students? Okay. And then, is there anybody who didn't fall into one of those two categories? And what are you, like mid-range? Neither early nor late? Okay.
Firmly in the middle.
We're in the middle. Okay. All right. Okay. So how many are middle again? So middle and late? Raise your hands. Okay. So the vast majority. And okay. Well, so the thing is, the most important thing about this transition is that it's quite brutal. It's emotionally, psychologically brutal for most people, not for everybody. Some people are like, woohoo, I dodged a bullet. And I think it's actually getting more and more that way. 5 years ago when I started The Professors In, it was a different world, and so it's evolving. But the fact is, in the humanities especially, the humanities is absolutely the worst for this. The PhD is seen as this route to a tenure track job where you're living the life of the mind. You feel that you've been trained entirely for that, and if you don't achieve that, you're a failure. It's the strongest in the humanities. And the thing is you're surrounded by people who firmly believe that mythology. And your peers in your grad program firmly believe that mythology. And your professors in the grad program firmly believe that mythology. And to break out of it is unbelievably hard. And it takes many years, really, to work through that transition and the sense of loss and grief that you might have. And that is okay. So I'm telling you this because if you experience loss and grief at the thought of doing it, or the fact that you are actually doing it, or you're in the process of doing it right now, that is normal, and don't feel bad. Like, just feel your grief and know that it's normal, and most people do go through it. I really do feel like it's a cult-like environment. If you've gone through an entire PhD program in the humanities, you have been indoctrinated into a type of cult. I always call it the world's most benign cult. You know? It's not benign for everybody, though. It actually can have some pretty destructive effects for some people, but in the most cases, it's really mostly okay. But it's very rigid, and they're very unyielding value judgments. And the thing is that when you leave, you cut ties with people. You cut ties with your advisors and the people who you may well have believed you were going to go a certain route and invested in you in a certain way. And then maybe some of your friends in the program who are going to have to disavow you because you are representing the unthinkable, the disavowed, thing. So having said that, I really encourage PhD students to think entrepreneurially, that you do have tremendous skills and abilities. Some of them come from before your grad school, some of them you develop during grad school, but you can mobilize them in an independent way that is separate from the value judgments that you have been surrounded by for however long you've been in grad school. And I like this quote a lot, by thinking more like, and I like it because of the contrast he draws, by thinking more like an entrepreneur and less like an apprentice, grad students can better prepare themselves for a range of fulfilling and meaningful careers, because it's that apprenticeship model that really puts you into this subordinate subject position where, oh, I'm nothing, I'm just, a student of the illustrious, Professor so-and-so, and, I don't like that model even if you stay in academia. I mean, if you read my blog, you know how much I hate that model anyway, and I'm trying to get people to throw off that sense of, subordination to their advisors, because I think it really works against you in every possible professional realm. But certainly if you're leaving the academy, then it's really, really destructive. So today, actually I just wanted to mention that one of the things I do when I go around and give talks on the post-academic transition, I usually, after talking about the searching for jobs and resumes and cover letters and things, I usually talk a little bit at the end about the DIY career and being an entrepreneur and launching out on your own. I am not planning to do that today, although I did attach my slides at the tail end if there was time to do it and there was interest. But I just want to preface preface all of that by saying that we're talking about resumes and cover letters, and much of what you're going to do, you seem to be doing in this program, is oriented toward looking for jobs and posted jobs and applying for those jobs, which is very, very valuable. But I really want to encourage you to get out of the, oh, I'm going to apply for a posted job mindset. You can also be an entrepreneur. You can also start your own business or your own nonprofit. That is another option, and it is a very difficult option for PhD types to get their minds around, because the longer you've been in the PhD program, the longer you've been inculcated into the academic mindset, you actually get more, how should I put this, become less and less willing to take risks. It is a profoundly risk-averse world. And the weird thing is, and I speak as a former academic, and I was really into it. I mean, I loved being an academic. I was totally into it and uncritical about it for many years, is that if you had asked me at the time, I would have been like, oh, I'm a total risk taker. And I think humanities people tend to think, oh, we're such free thinkers, you know? Like, we think we're risk takers. No way. The realm of risk taking is like from here to here. You know, it's like, you know, I'm going to think this theory. Oh no, I'm going to think that theory. You know, like, oh, shocking. You know, they're gonna brutalize me at the conference. You know, which is true. They may well brutalize you at the conference, so it is a risk. Not to dismiss that, but in the sense of, you know, risk. You know, going out and actually leaving the safety of a known world and putting your money into and your time into a startup or something like that. And when I say startup, I don't mean like Silicon Valley that requires huge capital investment. I mean just like an idea that, like the Professor's Inn was just an idea that just create a blog, offer a service, and it may in fact really work out. So I'm not going to talk about that today because that's not a world where you need cover letters and resumes, but I just want to make sure that you think about it. Are you guys going to talk about that at all in any of your...
Tomorrow we're actually having a panel of people who have done just that.
Oh, good.
And
I'm so glad.
Not applying for jobs, but working on projects.
Yeah, so, yeah. That's excellent. There's an interesting question of the difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur, too. There's some, Seth Godin, I think, writes about it, and it's really interesting.
There's time and interest on everyone's part. Have at it.
Yeah, I'm very open about how we spend our time today. But let me get through some basic things, though. You know, the second most important thing about this transition, after you get through the sort of emotional element of it, is to redefine your identity, because when you are an academic, you're defined by these categories of nouns. I'm a philosopher. I'm an anthropologist. I'm a Japan specialist. They're nouns, and these nouns have absolutely no currency outside of the academy. They're CV nouns. And so you have to translate from this noun-based identity into skills. You have to disaggregate a singular identity into a very large group of skills. And a lot of the skills, like, so Margie Horton, who is another of my post-doc people, wrote this slide for one of her webinars that she does, and I like it so much because, and she identifies these reasons. And the main one that I think, well, I think they're all really important, but I think the worst is that we spend our time with people who have similar skills. So like a Japan anthropologist, like I spent a career living in Japan, gaining fluency in spoken and written Japanese, doing Japanese cultural analysis, and so, but every single Japan anthropologist can say the exact same thing. So, I mean, I could never go to the Asian Studies conference and say, well, you know, I am fluent in Japanese. Yeah, I don't like to mention it, but. But this is a, you know, but you step outside the academy and this is a huge skill and a very, very rare and valuable one. And so you have to remember that you have all these skills that you aren't allowed to take credit for. and then begin to allow yourself to take credit for them. And then this gets into the imposter syndrome and women's especially tendency to self-denigrate and the difficulty that people in general, women in general, have in acknowledging, I can do this, I can. We tend to, the default is I can't, or I don't, or I haven't, or I wouldn't. But no, I can, I do, I will. Anyway, and then of course there's the world of the aspect of that we live in a world in the academy that focuses on critique. And the highest respect you can pay to someone is to sort of critique them and their paper, right? But it's incredibly demoralizing when you're trying to reinvent yourself as a person who says, I can, because you have this voice in your head saying, no, you can't. What do you mean by can? Let's unpack can, and it's just very, yeah. So anyhow, okay, so those are preliminary comments. So you've already, I'm sure, done a great deal on this, and you probably know more than I do at this point. But my team, when I asked them what do people need to know about finding jobs, they said, well, first of all, you just have to look for job postings at LinkedIn, Indeed.com, Idealist.org are the best places to start. And again, I want to say I'm not an expert on details of finding jobs, so in different fields. But I do know that these three are absolutely great places to look for, and they're great places to look for people like us, people who are in the academy and who are going to be oriented towards certain types of, certain types of interests over others. So you can, of course, target key employers in your area also, and check their job postings. If there's a couple of corporations or businesses or nonprofits that you absolutely know you're interested in, you can always check their job postings. And then find other listings that are specific to the field that you want to go into. They, just like the academy, they are really if you've ever been in one of my webinars or talks, where I start on the academic job market is they want to reject you. They want to reject you. Understand that the search committee wants to reject you. They have to reject you as quickly as they can. Because in an academic job market, we're talking 300, 500, 900 applications. In a field like English, 900 applications, not unusual for a single job. And they have to get to a long short list of 25. So they have to jettison 775 applications, or 875 applications if it's not, in the space of an evening or two. So while in the corporate world or the non-academic world, it isn't that intense. It is nevertheless still that the bias is we have to jettison. And so so your materials have to be effective, and they, just like in the academic job market, they have to be effective, but they have to be effective in a different cultural realm. So what is effective in an academic realm, and I have a lot of opinions about that, does not translate into the non-academic realm. In fact, most of the rules that I've written about in my book do not apply. It's almost like the polar opposite. So I'm going to talk about that. But the other thing that my team wanted me to tell you, en masse, they rose up by email and said, you must tell them, is that you don't get jobs from job ads. You get jobs from contacts. And have you heard this already? People already hammered this home? Okay, good. And there's a psychology of it that hiring manager just wants to have a known quantity rather than an unknown quantity. They're going to trust someone that their friend said, or whoever said was good. It streamlines their process, so the bias is that someone gets in and then the interview process and reading the material simply verifies that the person is in fact hireable for them. So you absolutely need a good resume and a cover letter, but your network of contacts is absolutely crucial. So and academics, don't like to network. as a rule, as a broad generalization, if I hear one thing, you know, from audiences, it's like, I don't know how to network, and I don't want to. And I understand that. But networking is actually, it isn't as scary as it seems. It sort of just means letting everybody you know, well, among it, there's a whole bunch of different ways. And again, I'm sure that you have already, or that you have or will have sessions on networking, I assume. So I'm not going into specifics of this now, but because there's things like informational interviews and stuff like that. But one of the foundational things about networking is just make sure that everybody you know knows you're looking for a job. And that means everybody. That means if you have kids and you got to have a babysitter come, make sure the babysitter knows that you are looking for a job. And the babysitter, if the babysitter's like mom comes to pick her up, you know, make sure the babysitter's mom knows that you are looking for a job, because you don't know what your babysitter's mom does. But it may be, you know, the little conversation, 15-minute conversation. Oh, yeah, well, you know, I actually work at a nonprofit. Yeah, I'm the director of communications. Sure, yeah, I'll introduce you to our, you know, hiring manager. And you just don't know. And so you cannot limit it. You simply, it's very multifaceted and unpredictable and improvisational. Very, very different from the academy. The academy is so not that. The academy is so linear and, you know, predictable in terms of all of its hiring. Okay, so let's get started on what is a resume. A resume is basically, it's a marketing document. So you have to think of it, and I know that you've talked about brands, developing your own brand, and in a way the resume is a reflection of that brand. So it's again, using this language is getting comfortable with that, you know, corporatized neoliberal language that is so you know, foundational to how we understand ourselves. And by the way, just so you know, I use this language for the academic job market as well. So I don't see any difference. I mean, you have to have a brand, and you have to market yourself for tenure track jobs. So there's no distinction. There's a distinction in the way you do it, but not in the fact that you have to do it. But you have to identify the employer and the position needs. You have to describe how your background fills those needs. And you have to do so in a way that's reader friendly. These are these 3 points. And all 3 of these points are places where people screw up. People screw up on the first point because, and this is the classic job seeker mistake, is that you forget that the employer has needs. And you are so busy saying, I am, that you forget that your goal is actually to meet their needs. This document is not about you. It's about you in relation to them. So forgetting the employer needs is absolutely, and it happens on the academic job market as well. Then, describing how your background meets those needs is a place where people screw up because you emphasize the wrong things. Because you're too enmeshed in your academic identity and mindset, and you don't understand how to pull the relevant aspects of your record out that will meet these needs. In a nutshell, you spend too much time talking about your PhD. Nobody wants to know about it. I mean, even in the academy, nobody really wants to know about it. So you can imagine how little these people want to know about it, right? Anyway, so that's like classic mistake. And then the classic mistake of a PhD is that you don't write a letter that's reader friendly. You write too much. Bottom line, write too much. And you write, your paragraphs are too long, your sentences are too complicated, they're too hard to parse, they have too many caveats, and no problem. and use, weird language that nobody outside of our little world understands. So those are the three things. So make sure that you note those three. I'm sure they seem really rote and obvious, but if you unpack them, they encapsulate the challenges. So, okay, when you're making a resume, you make a master resume, and that resume has everything on it, but you don't send that master resume to jobs, because chances are that master resume may well be many pages long by the time you put everything on it. But it's just a holding tank for all of your stuff. And then you just copy and paste into another document for the specific job at hand. When you are making your resume, you want to make sure, and this is really in bold, use terms from the job ad. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this. So just noting that right now. 1 to 2 pages max. 2 pages is fine, but please don't go beyond 2 pages. And please be aware that there is a thing called an applicant tracking system. Have you guys talked about that at all? So that's a thing. So humans don't actually look at your resume in many, many job search situations. I can't tell you what percentage, but it is certainly the majority. At companies, at medium or large size companies and organizations, you get passed through an electronic or a digital tracking system, and that tracking system does the job of jettisoning the majority of applications. So you have to be aware of this, and I really urge you. I'm only saying a few words on it, but please afterwards, please Google ATS, Applicant Tracking System, and do some reading, because everybody talks about it. The difference between the academic job market and this world is that in the academic job market, there aren't that many sources of advice. There's the Professors In, there's the Chronicle of Higher Education, there's a little bit on Inside Higher Ed, and there isn't much else. A little bit on some university websites. But the non-academic world, there are volumes and pages and, of advice. The trick with that is figuring out what's worth following. There's so much that it's overwhelming. But in any case, you can find good advice by Googling various things. And so applicant tracking system is something that you should Google and find out about. So, they are, the thing about ATS is they want to see certain words which are from the job ad. And if you do any kind of fancy, weird formatting, it'll throw them off. And in fact, an electronic signature will throw them off. So don't, one thing you might not be aware of is don't put an electronic signature in a cover letter that's going to go through this system like this, because it throws it off. Yeah?
Do you mean like an electronic system that's formatted by like Adobe, or adding in a JPEG of a signature, or either one?
Well, to be on the safe side, I'd say either one. Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I'd say the former is probably the more dangerous rather than the JPEG, but I would avoid both just to be on the safe side. So a resume element is, you start at the top with your name and contact info and have your LinkedIn URL up there. Does everybody have a LinkedIn page? Did you have to create one to be part of this thing?
We went to LinkedIn last week.
Oh, I think that's so cool. Yeah. It's just so crucial. It's just so crucial to your professional life and job search. But your work experience and your education, and education should come last in general. Although I am going to show you 2 resumes, and one of them has education toward almost last, and then one of them has it not last. And we can talk about that. But in my experience and my observation, education on a non-academic resume should go last or second to last. And then you might have certifications and a skills list. So resumes are interesting because they have fads and trends just like anything else. And so there are things that I want you to be aware. I want you to use your research skills. I really do want to urge you to do some research for yourself on resumes. Don't just listen to everything I have to say. You know, take that as a basis and then move on. And because what's interesting is that people put a lot of really smart people put a lot of thought into resumes and cover letters, and they are adapting their advice to conditions as they evolve. And so years back, having an objective, like my objective is to have a high-powered career in the exciting and dynamic world of, you know, accounting. You know, I never liked those. I was like, what is that? This is such BS. But finally the world has caught up with me, and now people don't like the objective anymore. And so you might see models that have an objective. It's good for you to understand that that isn't necessarily what you should follow. So don't have that. And so Liz Ryan of the Human Workplace, she writes on these issues, and I really like her. She's smart, she's very current, she's funny, and she has a blog, a post called 5 Resume Rules You'll Be Glad You Broke, and she explains why. So I'm not going to go into breaking those rules because, you know, like everything, you have to walk before you can run. So I don't want you to go in with the idea, I'm going to break all the rules. No, first you need to follow all the rules. Follow the rules, and then begin to see how you can nuance them after that. Yeah.
Just kind of going back to the applicant system thing.
Yeah.
It's like not liking irregular formatting. What counts as irregular formatting? Like just like not using Times New Roman, or like putting in a column, or like what?
Yes.
Yeah. So just.
Columns, borders, funny fonts.
So like not Calibri, so like Garamond, like what?
Oh, the font, no, funny fonts like script.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, not the basic professional fonts of, no, that's fine, that's fine. Letterhead can be problematic, yeah. So it is best not to use letterhead for these purposes, yeah. Okay. All right, so let's see. I realize this is small, but I wanted to show you how a cover letter was written, a resume was written that spoke to a specific job ad. So this is for a bilingual content editor in Spanish for a Spanish national website. And so, as you can see, highlighted here are write stories and curate published material, new media and video, deep knowledge of Hispanic communities' interest in information needs, ability to see and produce socially shareable content consistently, writing each day, differences in writing headlines for the web and social media, bilingual, write, rewrite, and post stories in Spanish, writing styles and grammar in Spanish. And then it's beginning to get kind of redundant at this point. Yeah. So this is our job ad, and then on the second page it explains the business a little bit, and then it says we hire individuals who help us accomplish our goals with speed, passion, and courage. So. Okay, so one thing when you see a job ad, have you learned about word clouds yet?
Yeah.
You have? Some of you are saying no.
Just like in life, not in job search.
Well, word clouds are very valuable for the job search. They're absolutely useful technique because they help you to you take an ad, you run it through wordclouds.com, and it generates this word cloud, and it really helps you you could have probably done this. Actually, people who work with words the way we do, we could probably do it without a word cloud, but in any case, it does make it very immediately obvious that the major terms in this ad are media, knowledge, writing, Spanish, digital, and so on. So you can print this out and have it there next to you and make sure that you use these words in your resume and that you use these words in your cover letter. and I actually think this is quite useful because, again, the biggest challenge for PhDs is that we are self-absorbed. We tell a story about ourselves that is about our life as an academic and a scholar, and we forget that others exist, and the other values and priorities and needs exist, and so having the word cloud helps you to do that. Also, the word cloud's also really helpful because this particular job is a pretty understandable job for someone coming from an academic perspective. But if you're going into like HR or development or, you know, maybe worlds that are more distant, you're not going to know their vocabulary. And so this is a great way to instantly see your way through the thicket of jargon that you don't understand and identify what are the most important jargon words versus the less important. So here is a resume that is useful for that, that has been created, oriented. This is a person who has a PhD in linguistics that they created in order to meet this job ad. Now, I realize this is small, so can you guys see it? Wonder what we should do.
I mean, if you don't mind, I can actually email it right now so people can put it up on their screen.
Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. What a good idea. Do you need me to pause while you do that? Yeah, I'll pause because then everybody can look at it while I'm doing it. Anyone have any questions at this point while we're pausing? Yeah.
I have a question about the master resume.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it would be okay to put something like a master resume on your LinkedIn skills and experience? So I guess my question is more about sort of what to put on LinkedIn, because it's just a one-time shot rather than sort of, you don't give like one LinkedIn to one employer, it's just a right there. So like what to include and not include in those sections on LinkedIn.
That's such a good question. I think on LinkedIn, it's fine to have your full work history. I think that's fine. I do think, though, that you want to do some pretty careful molding and crafting of some of those other sections where you're sort of explaining yourself in a narrative form, because you want to look legible. I mean, the thing about the job search, and this is true in the academic and the non-academic realm, is that people are rushed and they want to know you quickly as, oh, he's the guy who does, and have that be very tangible. And so what you don't want to look is scattered. And so I think that in this day and age, people have a very winding, circuitous job history. So I don't think naming all the different jobs you've had as you've gone through your life it will detract from your identity. But the way that you use that that first line up under your name, that is like, what is it, like 2 lines long? You get 2 lines up there or something like that, 3 lines, not very much. And then the slightly longer, elaborated one, I would try to make that very powerful and targeted. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, someone over here had their hand up before. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. So, one of the things that I'm sure a lot of us have on our CVs are like awards that we've gotten,
Yeah.
and grants that we've received, and like workshops we've participated in. Like this one, does that all just go like out the window?
Yes, it
for a
does.
resume? Okay.
Yes, it does. Yeah. I'm going to get to that later. I have another example of a traditional CV and a resume that was evolved out of it. But yeah, basically I made a flat statement, but you know, one can always find exceptions. For example, let me look at this particular one.
I emailed it, should be able to pull it up.
Okay. If you won a FLAS for Spanish, you know, I'd probably keep that in there. So, for this job. So, or some other major Spanish language, Spanish training grant. So I wouldn't say that inherently needs to be removed. I mean, that as a blanket rule, every single award needs to be removed. It's just that as a blanket rule, awards as a category has to be removed. And then you have to study if there's an exception that one of them might be pulled back in because it covers the content of the job. That'd be okay. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna, this is like if you're applying to sort of like nonprofit fundraising, like having won a lot of grants and.
Yes,
awards would
of
then-
course. If you are going for a fundraising grant writing situation, job, then yeah, your success in grant writing would be good to highlight, absolutely. And so I think that in that case, now, with a caveat, those were grants, most likely, given that you're in humanities, these are grants for your own personal individual work. They're not programmatic or institutional grants. So just because you got individual grants does not necessarily mean they're going to trust that you can get, wait a minute, just because you got individual grants doesn't necessarily mean you can get institutional grants. And so it will be valuable to a degree, but it won't answer every query they might have about you. Okay, someone, you had your hand up back there.
This is kind of back to the networking question. In terms of kind of letting everyone know that we're looking for a job, so I'm interested in the nonprofit sector, and I do have like 3 friends that I studied abroad with years ago who are in the nonprofit sector. Is it appropriate to be like, is your organization hiring?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you guys know about informational interviews, right? Okay, so you know you never asked for a job at an informational interview. So if you were, so I'm not sure how good of friends they are and what the nature of your conversation with them is, but if they're really friends, then yeah, you could just say, is your organization hiring? If they're not really friends, they're more distant acquaintances and it's more like an informational interview, then it's not, you can't really so much say, you can't come right out and ask that. But absolutely, they are major elements of your network and utilize them. Yeah. Okay, does everybody have the resume pulled up? Okay. So, as you can see, the education, the most important thing is education has been moved down past the relevant work experience. As you can see, there is no objective seeking a high-powered position in Spanish language media. None of that. You're starting with your work, you're going to your degrees, and then you have a substantial section on skills, and skills are absolutely critical. You know what, I passed over the skill question pretty quickly. When I have a webinar that I offer pretty regularly, and a talk, and it goes into more details about the kind of skills that PhDs in the humanities have. So I'm not going to go into that right now, but I want to make sure that you thoroughly explore that question, that you grasp that there. So Margie Horton, one of my post-doc consultants, she gives a webinar. It's called Targeting Your Skills for a Post-doc Career, and it's available. The recording is available on my website. I think it's $50. And what she does in that is first of all, she talks you for an hour through figuring out what your skills are. And then she provides a list of 100 skills that people with humanities PhDs tend to have. And it's really cool because it really helps you to think outside the PhD box on what it is that you can do. Because it isn't just writing and editing and public speaking and grant writing, which of course we all have, but it's also, you know, types of analysis, it's identifying problems, it's, you know, all of these different things, managing a team sometimes, depending on the type of work that you do. So I want to make sure that you don't give short shrift to the question of skills. The most important thing you do before you write a resume is make a master list of your skills, and it should have like 100 elements on it. And if you can't get to 100, then you need some help. So, you know, because you all have at least 100. It's just that you aren't used to thinking of them that way. And by the way, they can also include your pre-PhD world. Like, you know, when I started, realized that I was unhappy in the academy, I didn't start the Professors Inn right away. I started a jewelry business. I don't know if you know that. And I made jewelry out of Japanese paper, which was a hobby I had from living in Japan all those years. And that was my skill. My skill was origami. My skill was jewelry making. There were all these other skills that I developed as a result of that. And then those skills fed into other skills. So make sure you list all your skills. Okay, that was a little digression. Yes.
So in terms of relevant work experience,
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else is in this boat, but for me, all my relevant work experience is basically during my PhD.
Mhm.
So would I put there like individual courses I've taught during my PhD work? Do I put a blanket like, here's all the stuff I did as a research assistant or teaching assistant, or how should that look?
Yes, you do that. So what I like about this particular example is that it shows how this person took work experience in the Department of Linguistics at U of O and University of California, Santa Barbara, and made them useful for this purpose. So teaching advanced courses in linguistics, supervising teaching assistants, conducting research on native Mesoamerican languages to understand how language is used to construct ethnic identities. You know, that's actually a pretty interesting way to reframe her it is her doctoral work, right? Or she was her doctoral work, to speak in a very, very brief, concise way to the demands of this job.
Right, but it's like that's the only work experience I have. If I don't have this like self-employed and everything that they have on the first page. Like,
Right. Yes, then you have to do whatever you can to frame. So did you say what kind of work you're interested in?
I'm interested in governmental or NGO work.
Yeah. Then it becomes an issue of extracting what you learned, what skills you gained in the process of doing grad school and pre-grad school. And then, of course, also stuff that you proceed to learn now. How are you, early, mid, or late? Mid, okay. So you have time, and I assume you are intending to finish the PhD? You're not like planning to bail in the middle? Okay.
Just do comps. I'm not going through comps and not getting something out.
Yeah. Fine either way. But so basically then, if you know that you're in a program and that you have a few more years in that program, you're actually in really good shape because you can start to experiment in gaining different skills as you progress through the academic route. You can say, since I'm really interested, you can start reading the job ads now, looking at what they're asking for, looking out at your PhD and thinking, well, I'm just not going to get that in a PhD, but I can get it by volunteering at this place or doing a class at the Chamber of Commerce and getting a certification, that'll take me 6 weeks. Or there's a lot of stuff you can do very, very quickly. The rest of the world moves much quicker than the academy does. And you can gain all kinds of extremely credible expertise very quickly by taking little classes and doing little online, this and that and the other thing, and then building up a record. So what I would say is, first of all, so it's sort of a two-pronged process. Extract all the skills that you actually already have that may be invisible to you until you really sit down and think about them. And then also really look directly at your gaps and then start to fill them because you're lucky you have a couple of years to do it. All right, so as you can see, looking at this resume, the first thing you notice is that it starts with work experience, that it lists a job, that it can be self-employed. By the way, you can be self-employed too. You can do a side gig.
You have to make money at it?
Yeah, make money out.
If you do something but just don't make any money.
Yeah, you can still call, of course. Absolutely. Most businesses don't make any money for the first 3 years. It's true. So, you can call yourself a self-employed content editor. Anyway, and then as you can see, the bullet points. Bullet points are your friend in the non-academic resume. Now, if you've read my thing on Dr. Karen's Rules of the Academic CV, I hate bullet points. I make everybody remove all bullet points from their CV. It's just convention. There's no real logical reason. We just don't use bullet points in CVs. We do use bullet points in resumes. So feel free to use all the bullet points you want to. Notice the use of verbs. Verbs are important. Verbs are not in academic CVs. Academic CVs typically are verbless. They're just I don't know, nouns, I guess. They're just journal article, title, date, year, grant, foreign language, blah blah blah, award, year. But in a resume, you use verbs. And I'm actually going to take apart the verbs more in some slides that are coming up. But published a 3-part series, reviewed 3 articles, wrote and published, promoted content. And then the one below, edited content, corrected errors, checked factual statements, made recommendations, checked special formats. It is okay to use, with this particular example, I am a freelance content editor. I edit the content in style. I was the instructor for Spanish language courses. That is called, what is the name of that? What? It's the human, there's a name for this. It's the, well, it is the personal voice, but it's actually, there's a name for this resume. It's like the human-centered resume, or human voice resume. Human something resume, can't think of the middle word. And it's really like recuperating the fact that you can say I was, I did, I made, I wrote. It's putting the I back in the resume, which the I got taken out of it for a very, very long time. So anyway, you can do research to see if you're comfortable with that format. It's a relatively newer one, but you can use it. This one uses it. All right, and then the skills at the end that really pull out what it is that it's basically restating in in much shorter form, what it is that's implicit in all of this work experience that you have. So Spanish, first and foremost, writing. So do you remember the word cloud? I mean, it was Spanish, writing. Rewriting content, content editing, style editing, developing headlines, promoting stories, translating content. All right, do you have any questions about this resume? Yes.
So going back to like the 6 seconds that you have to like get someone's attention, what about this resume, like where and what would be that sort of 6-second grab, or that first grab?
To me, it would be the combination of the continual recurrence of the word editor and writer and Spanish. That's what would get me through.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I'd be curious to ask what you guys think.
For me, there's a lot of white space, and that makes me want to read it more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just knowing that seeing that I'm not being bombarded with language, I'm more interested in seeing what few words actually they are saying.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I meant to say that and I didn't. Just like with an academic CV, I'm always hammering with academic CVs, do not bombard us with verbiage. Do not cram everything on there in 10-point font. It is, our eyes can't track it. We need white space. Same thing here, you need white space. Same thing with a cover letter, academic, non-academic, you need white space. The eye needs a break. Desperation makes you do the otherwise. It makes you try too hard, write too much, and you think it's going to be better, and it's worse. It's counterproductive. So yes, this is also acknowledge. There's an enormous amount of confidence that is communicated through limited content. But of course, it's a delicate balance, because sometimes people will, and I know this from working with clients, people take this way too far. And they're like, I say, you need a short cover letter, and then they send me something like a client, and it's like 3/4 of a page. And I'm like, no, that's too short. I said a page and a half, so use the whole page and a half. So we need 2 pages, but this is a good 2 pages. Anyway, anything else? I wouldn't say that this is the world's best resume. for this particular job. I don't know that this candidate is the perfect candidate, but I think what they've done, and the reason this is valuable for our purposes here today, is they've taken a classic PhD in linguistics resume and they have reworked it to make a really credible case for that job. I'm not saying they'll get that job or that they'll get interviewed, but they're making a very, very credible case. They have used the vocabulary as well as they possibly can. They have extracted every skill that they have, and they're putting their best foot forward. Yeah.
What about the nitty-gritty of formatting? I was in a resume workshop a few weeks ago, and we got really into the weeds with like, here's how you set a right tab because the date should be here. And I'm thinking, that seems awfully.
Yeah.
So things like that, do they really matter in terms of how it's physically set up? I mean, is someone going to look at this and say, well, his dates aren't right aligned, so we're going to skip this resume?
I don't think so. I don't think so. To me, especially with the issue of the applicant tracking system and the fact that the more of those boxes and columns that you put in, the more likely it is to get. You guys have probably had this experience of when someone sends you a document as an attachment and it has a bunch of formatting in it, it often ends up really messed up. So to me, I would keep it absolutely simple the way this one is and would not get absorbed in that kind of thing. That'd be my advice. But I'd be interested in, if someone else made an argument. Yeah, and then there's the issue of like, where do they come from? If you are applying for, God forbid, you're applying for a design job, then yeah, it's gonna matter hugely. Your resume is your calling card. Your resume is your portfolio. They will not hire you if you don't have a resume that represents, fantastic design elements. I am not qualified to talk about that, but I know it's true because I work with design folks on the academic side, and I know what their CVs look like. But I think that in any of the types of jobs that we've mentioned here today, no, I don't think it would be worthwhile to spend your time on that. Yeah.
So what I noticed by looking at this is that they go from 2011 to present and then jump down to 2007, and that gap is filled in the other work experience. I've sort of had it hammered into me that there should never appear to be a gap in that way.
Yeah.
But this seems appropriate.
It is appropriate, and that's a CV. The CV logic is never have a gap. Everything has to be accounted for, and in resume world, that is not the case. That's actually the point, is you're pulling out the relevant content to this job. And there's an understanding that you may have done other things. This is new, of course. This is reflective of the world we live in, where people switch jobs and have a much more, I don't know what the word is, not a linear work trajectory. Yeah. Yes.
Going back to do you have to make money in order to put it on your resume? Can you put things that are volunteer things like work you've done on boards or work you do that shows a lot of skills that you have, say, in leadership, but is volunteer that you never would make money?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that would go under work experience?
I don't think it can go under work experience if you weren't paid. You can put it under community service. You can put it under volunteer.
Where would you put that on this resume?
I would put it after work experience.
Before
education, absolutely. But yeah, the fact is for folks who are in mid-career reinvention, your volunteer experience may be the most valuable experience you have. It's where you get your foot in the door for anything, and you too. Everybody who's trying to reinvent yourself, just get yourself on a board. Do whatever it is, as free labor. You can't do it. I always say, it's the internship economy is an exploitative economy, of course, and you can't run your life this way long term. But you may have to work for free to gain some skills that you need in the interim, for a few months at a time. Yeah.
Since many of us are in this boat of maybe not having had paid experience, right? But we have lots of different, volunteer, whatever, service positions, coordinating a conference.
Yeah.
Wouldn't some rhetorical kung fu here to be just to write relevant experience and leave out the word work?
No.
Or does that?
No, the post-academic, non-academic world does not work that way. No, they want to see work.
Okay.
They really want to see work.
But I mean, if you have a title, right?
Well, I would suggest to you that you might be able to call that thing, some of the things you just said, work. I mean, they are work. I mean, you didn't get paid, but they were part of your work as a graduate student, and you were funded as a grad student, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about these volunteer, you know, if you were, right, whatever, the event planner for your local, but it was all volunteer.
Well, tell me what, the event planner for what?
Yeah.
I need an example. Because you have to have, it gets down to the specifics. What is it that we're talking about? So you planned an academic conference, and you planned it for your
Organization.
department.
Yeah.
That's work. That's work. That's not volunteer. Yeah, so I would call that, I would put that under work experience. Yeah, even though you didn't get a salary for it per se, it is included as part of the the professional expectations that were included in your status as a graduate student in that department. So I think that's how I would. So I would just stick it under work experience. But I would not remove the word work in order to do that. Let's see, I don't know who had their hand up first.
Well, I kind of have two questions, but one is off that, which is, what about, for example, I know several of us have kind of been heavily involved in efforts within our own graduate programs to improve a problem that we experience as employees.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not formal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it does demonstrate leadership, but it's also like a little bit adversarial
Mm-hmm.
with our employers. So is there a place for something like that, and is there a link?
Well, can you be more specific?
Yes. I would say that I was part of a small team of graduate students who pursued and succeeded in correcting a pay problem.
Uh-huh.
In other words, our department or our university had started assigning us as adjuncts during the summer if we were teaching instead of graduate associates.
Mm-hmm.
And so those students were getting $1,000 less over the course of a summer term than over the course of a spring or fall term.
Mm-hmm.
And so a few of us went through the process of organizing that and collecting the evidence and making it change.
Mm-hmm.
Are you unionized?
We are not unionized.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We are unionized, so I would have like a similar question, but
Mhm.
like, you know, there's a lot of, not me, but other graduate students in my cohort have like jobs within the union. They were like stewards, or they did like negotiation and bargaining as union bargainers. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I put that under because I was the vice president of my union last year.
Mhm.
I put that under service and activism on my CV. I
Mhm.
don't know if it would fall in the same category on a resume.
No, it wouldn't, because there is no such category of service. Certainly not activism. Well, I mean, there's activism. I mean, it depends on the job you're applying for. I mean, if you're applying for a union job, that's totally fine. But most jobs are not going to want to see, I mean, the conservative bent, I mean, they're not going to want to see evidence of activism in general. I mean, I think you guys can all figure out which jobs would want to see it and which jobs would not. But anyway.
Or one more thing about that.
Well, wait.
For me, they told me, grievance chair was a little bit scary to read on my CV.
It is. It is.
But like leadership committee member was a
Uh-huh.
little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, although, grievance committee is a committee that exists in all departments, or is supposed to exist in all departments. But I know what you mean, yeah. So these are all really, really good questions. I would include all of this in a situation, you want to make an effective resume. You may have a completely effective resume without this. It may be irrelevant. It may just not be necessary. in which case, don't put it on, because if it's not actually helping you for that particular job, there's no particular reason to put it in. I mean, it was important to you, it's important in certain contexts, it's not necessarily important for this particular job. But if you feel like it does incorporate something that is essential to this job, and you also feel like maybe you don't have a lot of other content right now, so that you're really trying to cull everything you can, then I would just do it by massaging the words. So I would, I would neutralize the terms in terms of yours, so first of all, did you do it as, were you a paid TA in the department?
Yes.
Okay, so in my opinion, like the previous answer, this falls into professional obligations that are included in that work position. So you could include it as a bullet point under that listing of your TA-ship. And you would say member of, or if you wanted to do a verb instead of a noun, organized team rectifying pay schedule issues. Or something like that. And that does justice to it without, and puts it in a visible place on the resume too. Yeah, I can, so we are at an hour. I'm happy to keep answering questions. I want to use this time however is most useful to all of you. But I do have a little bit more to say and a few more slides and another example. So what would you like to do?
I think let's get through that and then take a break. And
Okay.
come back and workshop and ask some questions.
Alrighty. Okay, so we've already gone through this. So I wanted to just alert you, like the good humanities scholars that we are, that language matters. And so one of the things you have to do is get used to resume language. And so so I actually have 4 slides on this. So this is just the first of several. We want to make sure that we use really vivid action verbs. Developed, identified, calculated, defined, created, imagined, organized, gathered. These are just examples, of course. There are many, many others. In terms of human relationships, cooperated, delegated, represented, conveyed, asserted, provided, motivated, shared, counseled, also developed, did I say that already? Developed relationships. There's an adverb that is in here, sensitively, where that might be relevant to the particular situation, the particular job. And then there's management related things like coordinated, managed conflict, enforced, promoted, met. And you always want to meet goals and meet quotas. They love the meeting of goals and quotas. And on another note, and this is a slide I had in the previous version that didn't make it in here. This is relevant for both resumes and cover letters. If you say something like, let's see, so you have a job and one of your bullet points is increased funding, or so you could say bullet point, increased department funding. You could also say increased department funding 27%. Which one is better? The second one. You could also say increased department funding 27% in 2 years. You could also say increased department funding 27% in 2 years by leveraging support from multiple programs on campus. these are, I'm just like, I'm improvising here, but the point is, you are weighing two competing issues. Length, you don't want to, again, don't want to be that blah, 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 blah thing that we have a tendency to do, but you also want to make sure that you are giving specifics, name figures. The non-academic world loves numbers. They want to hear dollar amounts. They want to hear percentages, things like that. Quantify. So give specifics. I think you had your hand up, and then you had your hand up.
One question about that specifically in terms of fellowships and grants. Would you suggest listing the amount that you were given for an award or fellowship next to the award?
Well, you know, that's a CV question. I mean, that's like I wouldn't be, well, I wouldn't for a resume for humanities people because our amounts are so pitiful. You know, it's like $500, you know? I mean, that's not going to impress anybody. To be honest, I mean, if it's a larger amount, yes, yeah. But here's the trouble. If you list one amount, you have to list all amounts. It really doesn't look, it really looks crappy. And it looks like a typo. It looks like an error to not do. You either have to, you know, you have to be consistent. So it's all amounts or no amounts. So I would leave that up to you as to whether you have like five $500 awards and then one that's $20,000. Then you have to make a decision which way you're going to go with that. But if you have a bunch that are 20 and 30 and 15, then yeah, go ahead, even if you have a couple 500s in there too. Does that make sense? Yes.
So my question is about the entrepreneurial spirit that you were talking about. How does resumes and CVs apply to that type of goal? Would you be, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how that works.
The thing is, I mean, I launched my own business and I never needed a resume ever again. I never sought funding from anybody. I never sought any investments. If I had, I would have needed a resume. If I'd sought a business loan, I probably would have needed a resume, but I didn't. Then not because I had all kinds of money of my own, but rather because the business cost no money to start. I went out and I got a name. I paid for a domain name, and I bought a box of manila folders. And I never used the folders. So it was the cheapest thing. In the age of the internet, businesses are so cheap to start. Some businesses, some are not, some are expensive, but anyway, so, but yeah, in that event, you have to, if you do need capital investment to get started, then yeah, you are going to have to create a resume that shows that you are credible in the field that you are seeking to engage with. And that may mean that you have to do a bunch of, you have to do a lot of work for free for a while to show that you have developed this following or a credibility or consistency. Yeah. Okay. So here is a, so do you guys have this one as well? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So this is a classic CV, sociology, Riverside, with very nicely done on the Professor's In model. Yay! Publications first, presentations, awards, teaching experience. If you're writing a CV, this is a good CV for you guys to follow. This is the third page. So this is the job. Mental health educator, liaison between the Student Wellness Center and the Counseling Center at the University of Seattle. And basically what she did, now this was done through the help working with Maggie Gover. So the first one was done with Darcy Hannibal. Maggie Gover believes in having a summary and education up front. Darcy Hannibal does not. I also prefer not to have a summary and education up front. But I'm showing you this example because Maggie Gover, who's the person at UC Riverside, is very effective at getting her PhDs at Riverside into all sorts of non-academic jobs. So I'm showing you both as examples. Again, I want you to do your own research. I want you to explore further what you want to do for yourselves. And there are, resumes really are really variable, really variable. So here is one that was effective, and so this is how this person changed their academic record for this job. And as you can see by the highlighted elements, and this is really worth studying. She was a graduate researcher in the sociology department, but look how she so some of her actual research was specific to mental health, and that's a huge assistance to applying for this job. But she also did some other things, like she was an advisor to Sisters in Strength. I actually am not 100% sure whether advisor was paid or not. You know what I mean? So in a sense, this is going back to the question that he had, do you have to have work in here? She does not have work in here, she just has a generic experience. And so perhaps, and I can't tell you for sure whether advisor was paid or not, so I don't know. But basically, it's using that stuff from that position to speak to this job. But what I also really like, and this is speaking to the question that you had before, she was a teaching assistant in the sociology department, and she maintained confidential student records. That is something, like, that's not immediately apparent that that would apply from that world over to this world, but it does. And then coordinator of a conference. This is just like the question that you had, the guy had earlier. Maintained event budget of $12,000. So I managed a budget. I ran a conference. That again, not immediately apparent that that would be relevant to a mental health position, but it is. So I like this really a lot for to show you the translation element. Yeah.
So my question relates to sort of fudging, or not exaggerating, but you know, if we describe a process, how much? Okay, this is what prompted it. When you said maintain confidential student records, in our department, to work, if you do any sort of administrative work in the department, you have to do like this tiny little seminar in FERPA stuff.
Yeah.
It's very minor. You have some situations that are totally obvious, like Joe Schmo walks in and wants student records. Do you hand them over or not?
And you say, am I FERPA trained?
Right.
Yes, you are FERPA trained.
Okay, so but it doesn't matter that it took you 12 minutes to get through and you're watching YouTube for 9 of them.
No, no. No, I'm so glad you asked that question. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that 3 minutes that you spent thinking about it is more than everybody else. I mean, who else has thought about FERPA for 3 minutes?
FERPA, so we qualified tonight.
See? Yeah, see that is such a PhD question. That is such a PhD question. People with PhDs always ask questions of that nature. And I really want you guys to think and to mark this, to note it, make a note in your notes. Yeah, it's our tendency to say whatever we did isn't legit, isn't real, isn't enough. And there's a reason. I mean, there is a reason. Because what is ever enough in a PhD program? Nothing. Nothing is ever enough. Ever. For your whole academic career. It is the foundation, it's the gas on which this industry runs, is not enough. And you haven't read enough, you don't know enough, you haven't written enough, you haven't gotten enough money, you haven't spent enough time, you haven't lived in Japan long enough, you haven't, whatever it is, it's never enough. And we immediately take that mindset and we apply it to everything else. And it's like, well, I only did 2 years of blah, 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 that's not enough. Because for a PhD, 2 years is hardly anything. But you forget, you're not comparing yourself to other PhDs. You're comparing yourself to the world at large. And so the 3 minutes that you spend, well, technically 12, is 12 more minutes than anyone else has spent, who you're likely competing with. So that is a great thing for your resume. So this might be a good moment to pause and have a little break. Oh no, so wait, what were we talking about?
We were talking about grants and the importance of listing the prestigious grants, or the grants that matter for your field.
Right.
So if you're applying for a consulting job
versus a... So she had asked me whether to list grants when applying for a...
Consultant versus an NGO.
An NGO. And that she had been in an interview where her Fulbright seemed to have had a lot of effect, good impact, And so she wanted to list it, and it was like 21,000, and then there were, in addition, beyond that, there was a lot of small grants. And I said, in that case, if you've already have evidence that it's effective, then list the 21,000 and the small grant figures as well, and be consistent, list the dollar amount for everything. And then she said, yeah, okay, but what about for a resume to be a consultant? Do I list the dollar amounts for that? And I said, you know what, the dollar amounts are much less significant than are the names of the grants. The grants themselves, we need to know that those grants are, that they demonstrate your augmented credibility and expertise in this field that you're claiming to be a consultant for. So in that sense, it's, so the reason I asked her to remind me to say this to you is that there is a logic to these documents that isn't cut and dried. There is a judgment. You have to constantly be making judgments. And this is why having good advice and good advisors is helpful, because they help you. So I'm glad I'm giving you advice. I hope you also have other people, who can also advise you. And this is why informational interviews and having a network in your desired fields is so important. You need to know, how do they think? Because how they think is not how you currently think, and it's not how your professors think, and it's not how your grad school peers think. So you have to learn, it's a new culture. You have to learn the words that matter to them, the evidence that matters to them. And so in this case, the distinction between dollar amount versus the nature of the grant is something that, to my mind, would be significant. And similar judgment calls will be relevant for every single thing you do as you build these resumes for specific jobs. So that was the example that I wanted to give. There was one last slide on resumes. You do not put references on resumes the way you do on CVs. Please get your academic stuff off of there. So I know that you think that your committee members are so important, but nobody cares. Take your dissertation title off. Nobody cares. Publications, nobody cares unless they are relevant, like you want to be a consultant in a field and you have published in that field. Then of course you would keep them on. So again, judgment. Use your best judgment. What is going to build your credibility? But if it's just that you are trapped in the box of academia and cannot imagine your value in the world outside of your 3 publications, but you're applying for, a mental health professional job, and you published on Freud, or no, actually Freud, that might actually matter. You published on, Jane Austen. No, you have to take the Jane Austen publications off. It's not going to help you. Okay. And then pictures, graphics, borders, and special paper do not need to be in there. All right, so here's my question. Okay. Here's my question. We can workshop your resumes. You can all send your resumes to, have you already sent your resumes? Okay, I haven't seen them yet, so I have to figure out where that drive is and look at them. Pull 1 or 2 up. We can talk about them. Then you can also live edit them right now. We can take 20 minutes and you can just do that. And that is a valuable use of our time together. And then I can go around and I can just answer all your questions and look over your shoulder. And that's what I expected to do. I can also, so that's one option. The other option is that I run through the cover letter stuff and then we do the workshopping as we have time after that. So what would you prefer to do? Let's say, really?
You rarely do a cover letter when you're applying for academic things. You do personal statements or research plan. And so this is something that I've never written in my life, a cover letter.
Okay, so first of all, I have to correct the idea that you don't do a cover letter for academic things. You do a cover letter for every single academic job, and it is absolutely the most crucial document. Yes, true. For grants, you don't write cover letters. Also have to be clear that the cover letter that we're going to talk about for this is totally worthless for purposes of an academic job. I mean, this is a place where the 2 genres are literally opposite extremes. So please don't think that anything I'm about to say about this has any relevance whatsoever for for academic cover letters, which are very rigid, have extremely, really strict rules about what should go in and not. And so, but I'm very happy to do it. So absolutely. Now, one of the reasons. Oh, well, you had a question.
I just had a quick question. So I'm interested in fashion. And so when you're talking about like pictures or graphics, is there a way that, because that's like so important to me, and I think hopefully for the people that I'll be working with or working for.
Yeah.
So how do is it like my website or like a Tumblr or like, I don't know.
Well, so this is pictures of your work, though. Yeah, so that doesn't need to go in your resume.
Okay.
Now, so I want to say to you that someone working in fashion, like someone working in art, someone working in design, you need to talk to people in your field. You need to get examples of resumes that are effective resumes. By the way, when you guys seek examples of resumes and cover letters, don't just seek them from your unemployed friends. Like, oh, this is great. Yeah, you don't have a job. No, you have to get resumes and cover letters from people who have jobs and preferably have had many jobs successfully using these documents. So please find people who, in your field, and find out what they do. And if what they do contradicts some of the stuff that I said, you should do what they do, because those are distinctive fields. And I'm only giving you, like with any advice on any job doc, I'm giving you something that's going to get you in the ballpark and make sure that you are credible and reasonable. But there may be refinements that are specific to fields that you have to learn on your own. So wait, that was your first question. And then, yeah, but in general, of course, you're going to have Tumblr. You're going to have your own website. I hope you guys all have your own website.
We're aware of that.
Well, particularly for anyone in an arts field, it is indispensable. You absolutely have to have your own website. But in general, when I give talks on the academic job market, and since I know a lot of you guys are interested in the academic job market as well, I say have a website. But the website can be academia.edu if that's all you can manage, or you can just do a Wix or like a Weebly, copy and paste, drag and drop. And they're really cute websites. And you just have a picture of yourself in a professional picture, and this is now speaking on the academic side briefly. Your, a one-paragraph summary of your research, and then a link to your CV, and a link to your publications, and a link to your conference papers, and maybe a video of you teaching, or a video, if you have videos. If you don't, it's fine. But basically, just a place where when they get your application, they will Google you, and it is best that you have controlled the narrative. Yeah.
So, in theory, not in theory, we probably will have a CV for academic jobs and a resume for non-academic jobs. But our website obviously would be a big pain to do too.
Yes.
So how do you address that where it's appropriate for both audiences? Because mine is pretty heavily academic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
That's a really good question. Do you have a very firm trajectory on the non-academic side at this point?
Nope.
Okay. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about having a non-academic website yet. I commend you. You should have an academic website. If you know you're going on the academic job market, you should have the website like I just described. I gave a whole thing. Actually, I gave a thing. It's called Developing Your Digital Identity, and it's a Chronicle Vitae. I blog for Chronicle Vitae. I have a regular column every Tuesday. And I also do a free webinar for them regularly, once a month. And the very first one I ever did was called Developing Your Digital Identity. And it's still archived there on the Vitae website somewhere. I don't actually know how to find it. It's a total mystery to me how that website is organized. But in any case, I know they have it archived there, and it is free. So please look for it. Kelsky, Developing Your Digital Identity. And it talks all about why you need a website, how to make a website, what the risks, small risks are of a digital life, and Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, do that. And then basically, I think at the point where you are 100% certain, so then at the point where you're beginning to maintain two identities, people often have on their main website, they'll have my academic profile, like links, and then they'll have my surfboard making, there's some academic who makes surfboards, I forget his name, but anyway, and he has this whole surfing, thing, and you can just access both from the website, from the different pages. Or if his surfboard making business really developed into his main thing, then yes, I would say he should indeed make a whole separate website just devoted to that. And then link, if you're interested in my academic profile, go here. But, so it will evolve over time.
When you have the two different profiles, it's like one academic and the other, do you put non-academic profile? Is that a thing? Like when you...
I would actually give it a name, like my consulting profile, my jewelry making profile, I would, try to use, remember this is all marketing. So make it appeal to use words that are meaningful to others. Non-academic is not a term that is meaningful to anybody outside of people like us. All right, Okay, so the reason I expressed a little bit of surprise about the cover letter is that in the non-academic realm, cover letters are not very important. They are hugely important in, they are just humongously important in the academic realm. They are absolutely make or break you. It's why I am as obsessive as I am about cover letters at the professor is in. In the non-academic realm, they may never get read. They may go straight to your resume. They may skim the cover letter only to confirm, that the stuff on the resume really makes sense. They really just want the cover letter to just give a sort of just a narrative gloss over the content that's in the resume. You want it to be short, like 1 to 1.5 pages. And this really is all even more important than the academic side, that it have a lot of white space, that it be in sizable font, like 12, 11.5. Don't go smaller than that. Don't go smaller, okay? Don't think that you're gonna game the system and squeeze more content in there by having 10-point font and 1/2-inch margins, because it's just really alienating to middle-aged readers who won't. I can tell you, we won't. We'll just be like, I cannot read this shit, and just set it aside, because our eyes cannot see small font. So, so it needs to have a lot of the white space that you were talking about. Okay. Just like with the academic cover letter, where I always urge people to do some research to find out, if you can find out who the head of the search committee is and find out who's on the search committee, it's very helpful. Do some research. Certainly research the department, even if you don't know the actual individuals you want to know. Same thing with non-academic hiring. Research before you write. Find out, and if you can find out who the hiring manager is, use their name. That is just a courtesy. It's not make or break, but it is a courtesy that helps. As Darcy was at pains to tell me, public institutions often try to make this impossible, and they do this, and she works at a public university, so she is familiar with this, but basically, and the reason is that they're actually trying to preserve fairness. They're trying to stop people from having that insider knowledge or insider connection. So it's coming from a good place, but it makes it more stressful, because you can't, they're hiding the people who are involved in the decision making. So I'm going to show you some examples in a second, but this is walking you through the elements. You have your salutation. You have a very short first paragraph that explains who you are, what you can do, why you're interested. Paragraph 2 will explain the most critical element of the job and how you meet it. And you will have identified the most critical element of the job through either having talked with the hiring supervisor or just reading the job description. And of course, you'll have done that word cloud of the job description, so you'll have a very good sense of it from that as well. And research into the general industry, and we hope some maybe informational interviews with people in that industry, so that you have educated yourself about this world that you are trying to enter. Paragraph 3 then points to the evidence on your resume that shows that you can in fact do these things that you're claiming you can do. You may, there may be a reason for a 4th paragraph, but don't assume that. And then closing is just very, very short, just basically, thank you. Pleasure to join your team. Look forward to learning more. Okay, so currently, there are two kinds of cover letters, broadly speaking. There's the traditional one, which I've basically just described, where all the cover letter does is very, narrativize the bullet points on your resume. And then there's a problem-focused cover letter, where it's called, I think that Liz Ryan person that I mentioned earlier, she calls them pain letters, because you're looking for the pain point. Like, what is painful for people in this industry? What are they stressed about? I mean, if you were to think about pain points, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting exercise. If you were to think about pain points like in maybe an alt-ac area, like student advising, like I can think of a pain point. Can you guys think of a pain point? Undergraduate student advising, like for an alt-ac job. What do you think a pain point might be?
Recruitment, like.
Yes, like diversity,
Yeah.
like recruiting diverse student population. Absolutely, yes. That is probably the main pain point. Others?
You said for undergraduate advisors?
Yeah.
I mean, someone was here last week talking about this, and she said that there was a lot of like mental health
Yes.
complications for
Major pain point right now. Yeah, emergent in terms of how do campuses provide mental health support. Retention, the incredible attrition that happens after the first year, and the fact that in a tuition-dependent situation, the loss of students after the first year is a massive loss of tuition dollars. And impact on the budget. So how do you keep under the vulnerable freshmen enrolled? Like, that's why they have all those things like freshman interest groups and stuff, is to try to get them into a cohort so that they feel an investment. So those are 3 pain points right there. You would probably pick one and possibly take a cue from the elements that were mentioned in the job ad itself, like special attention to recruitment. Well, that's their pain point. Anyway, so the pain-focused letter, the problem-focused letter is one where you go directly to that and figure out how that you can soothe it. Now, emotional language is allowed in a non-academic cover letter, and I don't know if you guys know how much I hate emotional language. I hate it with a hot hate. And like the word passion, we don't even, at the professor's end, we call it the P word. Like, you're not even allowed to utter that horrendous word. But in non-academic letters, yeah, they use these words. But you do have to, you still can't overuse them. So Darcy suggested 1 time each in the opening, middle, and closing paragraph is a good limit. But if you remember that Spanish language media, do you remember they said at the end, they said speed, passion, and courage. So if they're going to stick that stuff in the job ad, then you can assume that they're going to be interested to see some evidence of that in the letter as well. All right, so so like I said, the traditional cover letter is just interpreting the evidence of your resume. So you might have language like my success obtaining blah blah $1,000 through the blah blah granting institution gives me the experience to fund the blah blah nonprofits projects. So again, that's just what we've been talking about. Your success in gaining in grant funding speaks to grant funding. You do have to edit, and this is something that is difficult for everybody all the time in every job search situation, because everybody's desperate and anxious, and again, you oversell. So edit, edit, edit. Don't speak to every skill you have. Speak only to the 3 or 4 that are relevant to this job. Prioritize the hard to train qualifications, the ones that take the most years. Language fluency, obviously, nobody can come off the street and be fluent in Spanish. This is a thing that without a solid 5 years or more, or childhood spent in a bilingual family or something like that, that kind of thing is what you absolutely want to emphasize. Okay, so again, please pull this cover letter example up. So this is, again, for that previous ad, the Mundo Hispanico. And so do you guys all have it up on your screen? Okay. So we can walk through the first paragraph. This is very, very clear. First paragraph is a summary. I've written and edited news content in both English and Spanish languages for both print and online media. I can provide a quick and diligent turnaround, and I'm excited by the opportunity. And then she gets immediately into the, and as you can see, she's really interpreting, she's directing the eye to certain things on her resume. So the content I write on my news analysis blog as a self-employed content editor and writer. And it's actually interesting because I didn't necessarily get this message from her resume. So that she's actually writing news analysis as a content editor on her own blog. So that's interesting. So that's actually a really good example of someone who's doing something completely for free, most likely. Unless she's getting some ad revenue from her blog, hard to say, but we don't know. But this is, there's a certain amount of smoke and mirrors. The internet allows us to do that. I have a daughter who's a junior in high school and she's applying for colleges. And I've been reading these books about how to get into Ivy League colleges because she wants to go to Brown. And from these people who've been successful at getting their kids into college. And they said, you have to create this impression. And so, obviously it's not enough for people to have a 4.0 grade point average, right? Because who doesn't at this point? And and that they play the violin and that they, are student body president, who isn't, right? Who applies to Brown, right? So you have to have this crazy profile. And they said, one of the things that you want to show that you're well-rounded is that you do something like you do photography, let's say. But you don't want to just do photography. You have to show evidence that you have displayed and exhibited your photography. Well, how do you do that? You're a junior in high school and your photography sucks. How do you do that? Well, she said, all you have, this mother, now I'm not saying I didn't actually do this because I think it's insane, but I think it's actually a really interesting example of smoke and mirrors. You call up your local coffee shop. The coffee shop is always looking for stuff to put on their walls. And you say, my daughter has a selection of photographs of, the Mackenzie River, like in Eugene, Oregon, where I'm from, very beautiful. You cannot take an ugly picture of the Mackenzie. You cannot. So, and they're framed and they're ready for display. Do you think you might have an open spot on your calendar? And they'll be like, of course, yeah, we have a week in, November that we don't have anything. And you get it up on the wall. You go, well, we'll bring it in and put it up. You bring it in, you put it up, and then on the child's resume, you say she has exhibited her photography. This is, I know, it is insane. It's insane. But the point is, it just made a really big impression on me, that this is how we manage impressions in these times where we're trying to get through the door. And so translate that as you will into your own worlds. But to me, someone making their own blog, a blog is a perfect example of this. Suddenly everybody's an expert, right? You have a blog, you were writing, and you begin to get readership. Your readership is evidence of a certain audience share, and you might get some advertising, whatever. We don't know how you're going to grow that blog, but I'm a person who grew a blog, so I can tell you a blog is an amazing step to a whole bunch of stuff. And this is clearly what this person is doing here. So all of you who are wondering what your next steps might be, this is like your photographs on the coffee shop walls and a blog. Those are the two things you should start looking at. Anyway, okay. Okay, so then in her third paragraph, she is looking at specifically pointing to a 3-part series in the Seattle Weekly. And look what she's doing here. connecting historical events to current issues related to the fishing economy. This is not Spanish. It's not Spanish stuff. But she's showing that she can do a 3-part series, which is not nothing, not incidental, and that she is doing current events. So again, everybody, you have to massage your record. Nobody's perfect. You're usually not perfect for everything. You have to massage. You have to think outside the box. So that's what she's doing. And then look what she's doing in that paragraph as well. I also served as a reviewer for 3 professional journals, editing the content of 3 articles on social and economic topics. See how vague that is? And again, I'm not trying to tell you that she's perfect. I'm not saying that this is perfect for what they want for this Mundo Hispanico job, but it might be enough. It might be enough. It might be enough to get her into the interview. And then in the 4th paragraph, then she gets into her Spanish language, and this is somewhat more persuasive. She's clearly very good at Spanish. And she's supervised 3 to 5 teaching assistants, which is good because she's going to have to manage a team in that job. And then she signs off, and boom, she's done. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question about the vagueness.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the 2nd paragraph when she's talking about her blog with a wide readership that is growing consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to personalize and be specific, I have been the literary manager for a small theater company in Chicago, and I'm torn about saying things like reached an audience without having to say the exact size of the audience because it's a small storefront theater company and dozens of people enjoy our work. Because this to me feels fake. Like my blog reaches a wide readership of my mom and all of my kids. So what, I don't know, if you can speak to how vague to be and still make it feel real experience.
I would be as, so one thing that I have noticed is that the world of non-academic, of corporate or whatever cover letters is much more forgiving of somewhat unsubstantiated claims than academia is. That your intent and your enthusiasm go further in this world than they do in the academy. So don't be as, I wouldn't show this if I didn't believe that it was okay. And I wouldn't show anything like this for an academic cover letter, where I never allow any claim that is not substantiated. But I have seen enough non-academic cover letters, seen enough of my clients succeed with letters like this to know that this works. I don't know why. It'd be an interesting anthropological, ethnographic question to know why, but in any case, so intent and enthusiasm count for a lot in this world. But if you can clarify wide, obviously that's going to help you. So I don't know what the readership is of this person's blog. But I would only urge you again, I worry that you're doing a little bit of what he did, which is, you've reached dozens of people. I'll bet it's hundreds.
Sure.
And it might be more. And there is, again, that tendency, what I do is so small, it's so small, it's so small. It isn't that small. You are doing it. You do reach people. You have done the work. You have marketed. You have, I don't know what all the elements are of the work that you do, but you're doing it. And it's more than anybody else in this room probably has done, right? So there you are. You're more qualified than everybody here, and we're all super qualified. We're very high-powered people. So I just don't want you to do that PhD thing of, well, because I can't claim it's 10,000 or 100,000 that it's not meaningful. Okay. And having said that, flip side, any specific number you can give that is impressive, obviously do stick in there and give. Just don't be too hard on the borderline of what's impressive and not. Yeah.
I like to think of it as presenting on panels where one person comes. And you still presented.
Yes, you
still
did.
presented that material. You still did the presentation.
Uh-huh.
It is still valid, even if one person is sitting in the audience.
That is absolutely
You got
true.
accepted into that conference. I mean, it's all of those other things that qualify that as an event.
Yeah. I mean, you had to get hired to be that person or put yourself in the right place at the right time. I mean, I don't know how you got into this job, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You did it, and none of the rest of us did it.
I'm like, I want that job.
Yeah.
I want to reach dozens of people.
I want to reach dozens of people. I know. I mean, we all start somewhere. So sometimes you can be completely untested and just come in with a good idea and enthusiasm. And you're beyond that. You are not just enthusiasm and a good idea, but you're also tested. And so you can bring, this is legitimate evidence that you know what you're doing. Yeah.
How do you feel about the redundancy in this cover letter?
Mm-hmm.
So she says the exact same, as a self-employed content editor and writer, at least twice. I thought I saw it a third time, but I only see it twice now. So in the second and third paragraph.
I see it, yeah. I might remove the self-employed the second time because that's not helping her. I'd use it the first time because it links to the resume in an effective way. We know immediately which element she's talking about, but I wouldn't not use it the second time. You're right. But I would use content editor and writer again because, again, in our word cloud, those were major elements. So in that sense, yes. So I'm glad you asked that. Redundancy is actually pretty good when it's the major words from the word cloud. Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, in terms of those of us who have like international work experience, and it's kind of a little far back, how relevant would that be in like being mentioned in a CV? And also, does it make sense to have people from that part of your life as references at all?
Well, so this is a version of a question that you asked. So there are different ways to answer that. Do you have other more recent work of that nature, or has it all been the academic stuff since then? So you're reaching back there for your only non-academic work experience.
I worked in the media sector in India, and I've kind of transitioned into being a filmmaker here.
Okay.
So it kind of connects.
Media, then filmmaker, and so in terms of your non-academic job search, what might you be looking at?
I'm looking at nonprofits and media advocacy.
I see. So the short answer is that yes, one would include those, absolutely. I don't know that having a letter of reference that is that old is going to help you. That's pretty old. On the other hand, if it's the only immediate, and it's from India. Yes. Yeah, I think the combination of the fact that it's old and it's from another country would be problematic in terms of its usefulness for a job in the States right now. But in terms of listing that, like you're looking for a media job and you have this fantastic media experience, I would absolutely list that on your resume. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just list anything. I mean, if you have it and it was in your career as an adult, yeah, list it. I mean, it would be preferable that the experience is newer, but the fact that it's there at all, again, is very significant. You had this experience, you gained these skills, you didn't forget them. I'm sure it's like riding a bike. You're not going to forget how to do media stuff just because you did a bunch of other stuff. And frankly, the stuff you did was pretty closely related because it's filmmaking. So yeah, I would absolutely include it, but I wouldn't use really, really old references. References do have to be pretty recent. Yeah. Okay, so let me show you now the problem, that we're talking about the pain point. You don't know what the pain point is. You might know it from the job ad, but chances are it's going to come from implicit cultural knowledge of the field. So you're going to get better and better and better and better. Like, for example, you guys are being experienced in academia. You can read a job ad, an academic job ad, and you might be able to tell the pain point in job ads. Like, I can look at an cultural anthropology job ad, and I can say, oh, I see what their issue is. They need someone who does this because they just lost someone who does that, or whatever. Anyway, see, this is a thing that you learn with time. So here is a pain point letter. So she's basically identifying the pain point in the second paragraph. Basically, how do you manage social media? Multiple sources of information, witnesses, civil rights organizations, you know, the videos, of course. I mean, where do you, how do you substantiate them? How do you use them? How do you analyze them? And integrate different interpretations into content that is both accurate and compelling, you know, and is going to grow your readership. It's really an interesting question. I don't know, I don't love it's a little wordy. I would edit this to make it more vivid, but in any case, but she is certainly identifying a pain point, and it is a really significant pain point for all media right now. And then she goes down to her third paragraph, and as a self-employed content editor and writer, I do blah, 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 and I do this and that, and I use analytical tools, and I track the content, and the shares of my stories have grown consistently over the past year from about 200 to nearly 2,000. So there's some numbers. I like that. She should have put that in the previous letter as well. These are not huge numbers by online standards. These are quite small, but they're not nothing. They're not nothing. Anyone starting out on a blog would be thrilled to get 200 and be even more thrilled to get 2,000. So it's good. There's also is it meta tag? Is it subtext? But the point is that she's actually saying that she understands how to track readership. Because do you guys know, who knows how to track readership on a blog? Like I do. You do. You know, I'm sure a couple more of you do probably, but most of you probably don't. And so this is another thing. They don't want to have to train somebody to have to go in and read the back analysis, you know, of the readership. So she comes in showing that she already has that ability. And she finishes, I can help your organization keep up with the growing and ever-changing news content in this area of increasing interest to Hispanic audiences. There's an error in there. It should be Hispanic. Okay, so questions about this? Yes?
Would this cover letter, so a problem-focused cover letter versus like a traditional cover letter, depending on which one you use, would that change like the organization of the CV? Or would that reflect or correspond to a certain order of how you place things or what you add to the resume that you...
Well, you know, I was going to say no, that you just use one consistent resume and then the letters would interpret it differently. But actually I can kind of think of ways that it would you could subtly shift your resume to push some of this a little bit more. Telling a story, I mean, once you've identified this pain point, how do you manage and integrate all of these disparate news sources, some of which are authorized and some of which are not? That actually is a whole other skill. And by the way, speaking of skills you don't know you have, that's a skill that she probably didn't initially know she had. She had to figure out that she had that skill by doing the work itself. So anyway, this is just another example of skills that we don't know we have. So I would probably maybe add a bullet point, you know, that might say something about engaging with social media, engaging with witness video, content, responsive writing, responsive content to witness video in the blah, blah, blah case, for example. And I would get really specific about that too. And especially if those specific cases were relevant to this particular news organization. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so just some general points about brainstorming. You have to show, these are really things that are, the emphasis is so different from an academic cover letter. It's really much more individualized to this company, to this job. The academic cover letter is so much more about, blah, this is my record. And then you only tailor it really at the very, very end. But this is very much here's what you do, and here's why I like it, and here's what you do, and here's why I've done it, and here's what you do, and here's how I can help you. So really conversational, really dialogical. So these are questions to think about. And also then, if there are gaps in your resume that you feel are really significant, you might want to explain them, but I hesitate to write this, frankly, because again, well, why do you think I hesitate to write this? After you've listened to me now for a while, why do you think I'm hesitant to talk about gaps?
Because you're probably overemphasizing.
You're overemphasizing the gaps. You're like, oh, I didn't, I should have. You know, you're fine. You did plenty. So I worry about it because everybody spends so much time stressing about gaps. And it's just like people are not looking that closely. Everybody has weird lives, you know? But the changing careers thing. Now, I want to speak specifically about this overqualified thing because PhDs are always going on and on about how they think they're overqualified. And I am here to tell you that it is very unlikely that you are overqualified for any of these jobs. And that is not a put down. That just means that your advanced degree is not necessarily the amazing ultra qualification that it really is in many spheres for this particular hiring manager. They may not see the PhD as being something all that frankly relevant. They may not care that much. If they do care, it may be because they're concerned about it. And it's not so much because they think that you're overqualified as that they may, and I actually can't remember if I put I think I put the slide in. The issue with PhDs and non-academic jobs is that PhDs do not have a good reputation in general. And I think you can probably imagine, well, why do you think? Why do you think PhDs don't have a good reputation?
Hyper-specialized.
Hyper-specialized.
Doesn't play well with others.
Doesn't play well with others. Absolutely. What did someone else say? Overcritical. Overcritical. Yeah.
Maybe arrogant.
Arrogant.
Also flight risk, right?
Flight
Like,
risk.
Doing this.
Flight
in
risk.
An academic job.
Yeah. Like they do not believe you're going to stay. Yeah. They really don't.
What about like translation issues in terms of having to speak to a public audience?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Use words that no one understands. Absolutely. Another one that Maggie Gover often emphasizes is cannot problem solve. I don't know. That's her, not me. I'm not saying. I cannot problem solve. I don't know if other people. I can problem solve some things, but I do have trouble. I mean, we often have a certain cast of mind where we live a little bit in the clouds. I mean, it's why we love to do the work of the PhD, and we aren't necessarily the world's most pragmatic thinkers. I'm certainly not. And so running my own business has been a real learning curve and strain. Although now I really love it, but there was a lot to learn. Anyway, so there's a sense that that there's going to be a decision that has to be made in 24 hours. You know, are we going to do this or are we going to do that? And the PhD is going to be like, well, you know, but really, what do we really know? You know, and, you know, and unpack every single word. And it's like, no, we know. Like, let's just make a decision. So this is the problem. So when you're writing your cover letters, you want to make sure that at the metatextual level, you are communicating that you speak really accessible language, that you play well with others, that you, if you've done teamwork, not all of us have, but to the degree that you have, that you can mention that you, what else? That you're truly interested in the job and you're not an immediate flight risk, that this is not just a holding pattern until you can get the tenure track job. Anything that you can do in that letter, that's what the letter does. The resume doesn't do that. The resume shows your past experiences. The letter is going to narrate your quality of personality and whether they're going to take a chance on you or not. Yeah?
Okay, so but I know this is not a question about cover letters, but in an interview a couple of times I've gotten the overqualified question, and like you said, it's not really about overqualification, it's about all those anxieties that you just listed, you know, what don't think. So how would you recommend answering that and kind of assuaging those fears? Probably not saying assuaging first, but so yeah, do you know what I mean? I always feel like I can never answer the question.
Well, so give me the context. So very briefly, what kind of job and what specifically did they ask you?
So the communications position, and they asked.
At a what kind of
at
business?
a nonprofit.
At a nonprofit.
Yeah, and they asked, how would you feel about having a PhD for a job that does not require that PhD?
Uh-huh.
I said great. Because I want that job quite a bit. So I said more than that, but. Yeah.
That's so funny. The way that one would answer that would probably, at first blush, I would say, while in my PhD program, I was taught how to, or I learned, I would want to use a passive voice, I learned how to do X and Y and Z in the communications realm. My true passion, and I do allow you to use that word in this context, is in reaching real audiences to communicate something blah, 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 whatever it is that they do. And I learned quickly in graduate school that I would not have the opportunity to do that in an academic career, and that is motivating me to seek career opportunities in a place like blah, 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 name their place, where I will be able to share the values of blah, blah, blah to audiences like blah and blah. Yeah, yeah. You can use that. Does that make sense? Everybody should really write. This might be a very useful thing for us to do with our time, if you want to, is write your one-sentence answer to the, or the two-sentence answer to the overqualified question, but as he phrased, as it was phrased there. Because really, it's implicit in everything they ask you. Because they don't trust you. Again, I'm making an overgeneralization. If you're hired for a federal research position that only hires PhDs, then they're not going to ask it. I mean, well, they are going to ask it because they're going to want to know that you're going to stay there and not bail for the tenure track position. They do want to know that, but they basically trust that you're a PhD. They don't mind, they like that you're a PhD. They're not distrusting your PhD-ness. But if you are going for anything outside, you know, that really where it is not a PhD-centric world, they are going to have some serious questions about all of these things. And so you need that line, that go-to line. So, yeah.
Okay, so I am considering bailing on my program. So I guess the way that I asked this question to someone last week was and I guess I sort of just heard part of your answer, but what does a PhD mean to a lot of these kinds of employers? I'm also interested in nonprofit work, and specifically, I'm considering like child advocacy organizations. And it is related to my dissertation topic, which I like a lot, but hate a lot of the other stuff about grad school. And I guess the flip side of the question is are there some positive things in addition to these anxieties that we just discussed? Or what else does it say to have a PhD? I guess is a simpler way to ask the question.
You can, so in the building on the way that I started that initial response, you might say something like, while in my PhD program, I learned how to do X and Y and Z, and I learned, critical skills in time management, project management, budgeting, grant writing, public speaking. And I've rendered all of this into a dependent clause, which makes it a little bit unwieldy. But the point is that you can list all of these things. In the PhD, I really enjoyed my time in graduate school because I gained critical skills in writing and editing, public speaking, analysis, fluency in Spanish, whatever the case may be. And I'm excited to take all of those skills that I gained and use them in a more applied context where I can have an impact on where I can move away from the world of research and move into real life, social impact. That's what I would do.
Can I ask you a question afterwards when everyone's done before lunch? I don't want to take up everyone's time, because I think this might be the only person who's in that.
Okay,
position.
alrighty,
Okay.
yeah.
Or I can't, whatever.
Oh, I don't know. Well, ask it and let's see how people think.
Like, what is the difference for a lot of these jobs between someone with a master's and a PhD? Is the PhD, how much of an asset is it?
Yeah. I cannot answer that because it's different for every single job, every context, every hiring manager. Some people really like PhDs. Some people have had great experiences with them, and some people have had terrible experiences with them. And I literally cannot tell you. I can't generalize. Some people are a blank slate and have had no experiences and sort of gloss over it and are like, I don't know what that is. But in any case, I know that you can do this and that's all I care about. So I would say that you just need to make sure that you can narrate all these tremendous gains. Don't ever criticize. This is a classic job seeker's advice, PhD or non-PhD. Don't criticize the place you were before. And in your case, don't criticize the PhD. Don't criticize grad school. Because hiring managers, they see you criticize that, they will assume that you will criticize them. And frankly, it's true. If you're a critic, you're a critic. If you're a malcontent, you're a malcontent. So you want to say only positive things about the PhD. And when you frame the explanation for why you're departing from the academic realm, you frame it in positives, not negatives. So it's not that, God, I really hated my grad program. My advisor was an asshole, and and there aren't any jobs anyway. Like, that's a complete negative. They're not going to be persuaded by that you have a really true investment in who they are and what they do. So, but you can say, I really enjoyed the opportunity to gain this and this and this and to spend time doing this, and I'm anxious to take those skills, eager to take those skills into this other direction. Yeah. Okay. Did you have your hand up? Oh, you did have your hand up, yeah.
So I know we talked a bit about don't get too much into your dissertation, what you study, but is answering the question of how you would be satisfied in a job that doesn't require the PhD a place to go into it a little bit? Say, like, as I worked on my dissertation, I did blah, 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 and it made me realize that X, Y, Z, thus I would be interested in working here.
Well, wait, what was the blah, blah, blah?
Okay. So, like, the personal example with me, like, my dissertation looks at historiography and how historiography written 500 years ago has still impacted the way we view things. So can I say something like, as I wrote my dissertation, I came to appreciate more and more the power of books to affect knowledge centuries down the line. Because of that, I realized that instead of a traditional tenure track position, I want to be in a position to help other people be exposed to books and the knowledge that they can convey.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. Now, I want everybody to understand what has been implicit so far, but I hope, because you're all very smart, I hope you picked it up. No question of this nature can be answered without specifics. There is no general, I mean, we've covered some general rules, like don't criticize your previous place of employment, but when you get into your own record and the narrative that you're going to create about your record and your trajectory, you cannot do it outside of the specifics. You have to know what is the dissertation, what is the specific thing you're pulling out of that, what is the job that you're applying for. So yeah, I get it, books make sense. Books. So that works for that job, but it wouldn't work for some other job. And so you couldn't just use it again for a different situation. So that's why everybody has to create their own story for a specific industry or area that you're going into. Okay, let me, this is super valuable discussion. So I've already mentioned all of this. But I wanted to read you this thing. So Darcy does an enormous amount of hiring, and in her position at UC Davis, because in the lab. And so I said, Darcy, so you've given me a lot of great suggestions for what to talk about and stuff, but I'll just speak off the cuff. What bothers you? And she wrote me this. So I'm going to read it to you. There are lots of things that drive me crazy about application materials, but most of the ones specific to PhDs are part of a syndrome of exhibiting the worst stereotypes of a PhD, providing too much detail in cover letters and resumes that are too long, speaking primarily of their own interests instead of what they can do for the employer, a resistance to accepting that the actual degree is not as important as the work experience and how it translates into skills. So skills, not degree. I recently spoke with a potential postdoc client who I'm sure is not going to choose to work with me, who explicitly said she does not want to focus on skills because she finds it distasteful and likely to result in a mindless, task-oriented job that she doesn't want. This syndrome brings to mind a potential coworker who will spend too much time getting the details right on a project they're making too in-depth, someone who doesn't play well with others, on collaborative projects because they're too absorbed in their own interests and needs. Meeting with them will be hijacked by their need to expound on their knowledge of the topic and thus will go off the agenda and run over time and exclude the contributions of others. Unfortunately, I've had to work with some postdoc PhDs that fit this stereotype too well, so I'm not at all forgiving of any of the red flags of PhD syndrome. So she actually calls it this, PhD syndrome, when I review applications for a potential hire. PhD application materials and interview performance must consciously convince the reviewer they do not fit this stereotype. The other thing PhDs do is try too hard to explain why they're leaving academia in a way that sounds sad and focused on the past. This is so true. This is so true. I've seen these letters. I encourage them to make a forward-thinking, upbeat statement instead, like I have found that I am much more satisfied working on projects that have a clear and definitive completion in the near term, and am pursuing work in X field with that in mind. A great statement for a fast-paced work environment where projects have to get done on a tight timeline that also makes it clear you're not going to turn every project into a dissertation. Everything about why you're leaving should be forward-thinking. If you have to talk about the past, define a crystallizing moment that put you on your forward-thinking path and talk about that if you have to, but it can't sound sad or resentful. Resentful, big problem. Bitterness. The bitterness problem. You guys, being still in grad school, may not have gotten there yet, but a lot of but a lot of the people who have adjuncted for a while and are only later making this post-act transition, and there's really a lot of sadness and bitterness, and it just colors everything that they write and say about this, and it's very, very, very troubling. Someone had their hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of wondering whether or not you have to talk about why you got a PhD at all when you're applying for jobs.
I think you don't. I mean, I don't think you inevitably have to. I don't believe you do. I think that it's completely fine to just adapt as the interview unfolds. I think it would be an interview question. I don't think it's a cover letter question. The cover letter should be focused on this job and the future, not on your past. But assuming you're going to get asked that question, you absolutely need to have an answer to it. All right, so I think that so we're done. So yeah, I have a couple good blog posts, the Post-Acts Guide to the Resume, the Post-Acts Guide to the Cover Letter, and then tons and tons of Post-Act content on my blog. So you can access, there's lots on there about interviewing, about reading job ads, about the psychological and emotional transition. So yes, please look at that. Okay, so we have some time. How would you like to use it? We can look at your resumes. We can look. You can live edit your resumes. Now that I'm here, I can answer your questions. Live edit your cover letters, or just have Q&A. Or do your statement. Do that statement that I was so intrigued by of the why. How have I moved on from the PhD into this cool new thing that I'm excited about? Yeah.
A question. So you said we want to stay away from the PhD syndrome. Oftentimes when we're going to look for jobs, it's dependent on our partners or our families and things like that. Would you suggest including that information as a way to suggest, I'm not leaving, I'm staying in this place because of family obligations or things like that? So the more general question of how personal do you get in a cover letter for those situations?
I dislike that in academic letters, but I think in this one, in this context, it makes sense. I think I'd put it in the concluding paragraph where I said, I'm excited about the position at such and such company, and committed to building my career here in Dallas, where I am invested in the long term due to extensive family connections in the area. So you render it kind of a substantiating subordinate clause to the main fact of your excitement about the job. Does that make sense? You don't make a whole narrative story about, well, my wife is this and my kids are this, and get off blah, 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 because that's distracting from the point, which is always job, job, job. Okay. Yes.
So I have been working as a research assistant, but really a secretary for one of my advisors for the past couple of years, and I help him in a variety of ways, but it's really hard to make. Some of them are easy to make concrete, like I facilitate communication between different organizations that he's part of. I edit things for him, right? I update websites. How do I bring all of those things together into a cohesive whole that shows exactly how important I've been to this individual? Does that make sense?
I have the same question.
Yeah, well, I sort of answered yours when we were talking, right?
Except mine's even more like, the person who I work for actually has a number of different jobs that are completely separate and gets paid separately for those, so it's hard for me to know, like, do I list that I assist in each of those jobs separately? How do we put them all together? How to make it not too wordy, but also to accurately represent all the other things?
Well, my feeling about it is, answering it sort of like I did with you, is this is a job, it's a paid job, so it's going to be in your work experience, and you're allowed to use bullet points. And so I would just make sure that each of those bullet points articulates the thing, what specific things that you did, and covers the scope of the things that you did. And so why would that, is that not adequate?
When it comes to embellishment, do I get free reign over that? Or do I need to make sure that he will sign off on?
Well,
the
like what's
things?
an embellishment?
I don't know, like, if I do a lot of secretarial stuff for him, I don't really wanna say that, right? Like, I won't make it sound more important. Now, I have a good relationship with this person, so I don't doubt that he would sign off on anything I say, but I guess, like, what's the wiggle room that we have, or how do we know if we're going too far with making ourselves sound overly important, I guess?
And if you have a job title, if what you do is different, can you say, can you make up your own job title that isn't the one that's actually the one that you're hired for?
Right.
So I did something similar all of last year, and the specific professor I worked with said to call myself on my CV the assistant program coordinator. She specifically told me to do that.
That's ideal if you can seek the permission to use a title that is different than the one you've actually been given, or if you haven't been given one at all. If you haven't been given one at all, I feel you actually have a lot of scope to make up whatever you want. If you have been given one, then it's a little bit trickier to ignore it and make up a different one. And in that case, if you have a good relationship, I would probably talk to the person and say, look, I'm compiling a resume and I need this to sound better than secretary for the jobs that I'm going for, and what can we arrange? And then do that.
Can we use you? I was consulting with someone on resume development, and she recommended that I try this title, right, instead of research assistant, since it speaks more direct, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, say I worked with a resume consultant who proposed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I just want to say to Megan and Sophia, I had a similar situation, and I had a lot of luck with just proposing my own title. And she said, yeah, sure, that sounds great, and it's going to look great on your resume. So I was the assistant to the director of graduate studies for a year. So
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I want to make another gender observation that this is another thing where I would observe that women have a hard time claiming these titles, claiming expertise, claiming accomplishments, and oftentimes my life principle has always been ask forgiveness later, rather than, what's the phrase? I'm forgetting the phrase.
Ask forgiveness,
Not permission. Ask forgiveness, not permission. Always been my principle. And what I see, and if I were to make a broad gender observation, I see women tending to ask permission. And, I did just tell you to ask permission, but in this case, I sort of feel like if you have a title, you kind of have to negotiate with the person about whether you can manipulate that title or not. But in general, if you feel like there's scope, just go ahead and do it and worry about it later if there's a problem. But you basically want to, really claim the space of your actual accomplishments, what you actually did, and don't undersell them, which is almost always the tendency that women have, is to undersell and underestimate. Yeah.
I have a question about using your contacts and networks to sort of get your foot in the door with your cover letter or whatever. We, over the past week or last week, we met and connected with some great people at LinkedIn or IDEO or University of Chicago Press, and they invited us to connect with them on LinkedIn. Now, for some of us, it could be a year before we start trying to make use of those connections, and this was sort of a superficial thing that's a year old that we did on LinkedIn. How do you contact them and say, hey, we toured your office a year ago?
First of all, contact them now.
Okay.
Contact them now. Everybody you ever meet, oh my gosh, this is Networking 101. Everybody you meet, you contact immediately afterwards and say, thank you for making time to meet with us.
Right, so I did that.
Okay,
right?
good. Good.
But a year from now, when I say, hey, remember a year ago, why would they even remember?
No, they'll remember.
But,
I think they'll remember.
I guess it seems like it could be a little awkward to be like, hey, will you make sure someone gets a look at my application?
It's not awkward.
Legit?
It's legit.
All right.
Yeah, it's how it works. It's exactly how it works. Yeah, this is that world out there. To tell you, well, I just wanted to say that it's sort of how it works in academia too. I mean, if you met someone at a conference a year ago, you'd consider that a relatively recent connection. Wouldn't you? I would. If I met someone at a conference a year ago, I'd be like, I just met that person. I realize we work on different time frames. Academia is like on a geological time frame, but still. Yeah. Well, you
actually had a comment and question that you just answered. I was going to say if the huge time difference differs in the academic versus non-academic context, but you answered that. Contacted someone this week for an informational interview. I met him at a conference a year and a half ago. And I was like, there are clearly cobwebs on this contact. Like, I can't just like send an email. It would be really weird and they probably won't remember me. But I kind of just used the advice that I got from the week, and I was like, I'm widely inspired by your work, and I would love to know how you navigate the realms of academia and policy, because they do applied research on HIV/AIDS among gay men in the U.S. And so they were like, I remember you, like, that's great, let's reconnect. And I have an informational interview with them tomorrow. So,
nice.
Just try. And the advice that I used from that weird marketing guy that was very exciting at LinkedIn, it's like team inspiration. The advice that I used from him was, if you get a rejection, you keep it moving. You know, that's the worst thing that can happen.
That is the worst thing that can happen, and it is unlikely to happen. You might get ignored. So what? Yeah, that happens all the time. But no, I have found that people tend to, and they're flattered. They're flattered that you remember them, actually, usually. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think this is exactly how it works. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about this, like the first or second slide you had. So if you had said that if we apply by email, that the cover letter is the email itself. So if there's I've seen job applications like this that say just send your resume to like hiring@whatever.com. So if I send just the PDF attachment of my resume, is it also a good form to like put a cover letter in the body of that email that's going?
Yes, I would do that. I would put a cover letter in the body of the email, or make the email a cover. Have the content of a cover letter. Yeah.
Okay. And if they and if they're not asking for, because I've also seen job postings that say just send your resume, do not send a cover letter. Is that still best practices to put?
Then I would, if I read something like that, I would I would have a condensed version of my cover letter that's basically one paragraph that says I am X, I do X, I've done X, I'm excited about this opportunity, thank you for reviewing my resume.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And if we're sending that as the email, should we still be attaching like a format, like in the cover letter as well? Right, like the same cover letter if we're actually putting it in the body of the email, just because like if they're printing it or sharing or forwarding, right? Like the formatting gets weird.
Right. Well, I guess it just really depends. Most places that are seeking, are asking for like you downloading through specific software, and so you would just do the cover letter PDF. So this is only in those cases where it's like just email us. And then then if they said, email us a cover letter and a resume, attach the cover letter, attach the resume, if they've asked for it. But if they haven't asked for it, then go ahead and tuck it into the email. But if they have specifically said, we do not want a cover letter, then don't do it, because you always obey what they have asked. It's very alienating when you don't. And that's true in academia too. They don't ask for a research statement, a teaching statement, don't send it. They don't want to read it. Yeah.
All right, so kind of alternate situation. Sometimes I've seen job ads where they don't even want a resume. They just say, you have like 600 words, tell us why we should hire you. So yeah. How do you do that? It's only like creative group, like people like communications agencies.
Yeah, actually, I have seen those. Yeah.
Like a presentation proposal. I was just saying, like, but isn't the skill of like conference proposal like a little bit transferable than that? Because you usually have even less time. Sure. It's like 250 words to get your conference paper into like a conference.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're gonna be using different language, but you're still constrained by like intense limitations of
Yeah.
like what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really not, 600 words actually a lot of words.
Yeah, I just made that up.
Oh.
The academic in me got real happy and was like, let's get a lot of words on.
I mean, it's like one page. But you could, yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by that. I think it's be like you just start with a, you do blah, blah. You're looking for blah, blah. I do blah, blah. Some evidence of the blah, blah that I did. One sentence, I can envision doing blah, blah for you, and I'm excited about the position, Like that doesn't seem scary to me. Of course, I'm not.
Like a condensed cover letter.
Yeah, basically, it's a condensed cover letter, yeah. And if it is a creative place, make sure that so this is a little bit of that metatextual thing that we were talking about, this judgment call. Much more so than in the academic world. You are matching your tone. In the academic world, tone never changes. Tone literally never changes. Your tone is identical for every document, every job. You will emphasize teaching more for teaching jobs, research more for research jobs, but the tone with which you speak remains very reserved, scholarly, whatever. But the tone of non-academic letters changes. Because if you're going for a creative job or a job like you just mentioned, I mean, you might get a little bit funny. You might get a little bit quirky. You might go quirky, and they probably like it. If you're going into tech, I'll bet quirky plays really well in tech. So so you're not going to be really somber and sober. But if you're going for the Library of Congress, maybe somber and sober is the way to go. So this is again, there's a lot more decisions to make. And it's stressful in some ways, because this is really a wide open world. It's like the Wild West compared to, academia, again, which is super, super regimented. How are we doing for time? Okay. Yes.
I was just wondering about, for those of us who are not U.S. citizens, the fact that, you need a work permit, like an H-1B, to be able to work after 1 year of OPT, would that kind of dampen your chances of getting like a long-term employment somewhere, or does that make you less of a candidate for people who are looking for more long-term?
I don't know the answer to that. My gut says no. For the kinds of sophisticated jobs that PhDs tend to seek, even outside the academy, because it's such an international, the market is so international. So I'm inclined to say no, but I can't say for sure. And I also can't say, I also can say that it's, we're in flux, and we're in a time of increasing nationalism and xenophobia. And so what is true right now, or was true 5 years ago, might not be true now. It's worrisome. It's like Brexit, It's like polarizing forces. On the one hand, everything's way more internationalized. On the other hand, everybody's afraid of foreigners. So, obviously not everybody, but you know what I mean, these polarizing forces. So, I'm not sure. That would be where you should have a network of international job seekers, or international professionals who come from your background and who are in a similar industry, and ask them. And everybody should really develop networks like that. People who are networks for your area of interest, people who are networks of your post-academic PhDs, people who are networks of your ethnicity or your place of origin, networks of your hobbies, because all of those networks then really, really can yield excellent outcomes for you. And they keep you sane. That's the important thing. They're support networks. They're not just information networks, they're support networks, and everybody needs those who's on the job market. And don't forget that, because people in PhDs tend to not take care of themselves. Self-care is like the lowest priority for people in PhD programs. And so I want you all to consciously elevate self-care to your highest priority, because you can't do good work if you are not healthy, emotionally and physically. So, on that note, yeah, have lunch.